I'm going to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Donahue?
Here.
McKnight?
Here.
Roa?
Here.
Vogel? Here. Stearns?
Here. If you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. There it is. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. If you have a cell phone, iPad, iWatch, if you would mute it, I will try to remember to tell you to turn it back on. Okay, for public comment, I'm not sure, that's been scratched out?
Yeah, it looks like
Just Melissa? If you would please.
Oh my goodness.
See how quick this is?
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Can I take this?
Sure.
Thank you. I guess I want to say greetings first off to Mayor Stearns and City Council members and to the city staff. I'm here tonight as a representative and a longtime member of the Meadville chapter of the NACP to express our appreciation to the city for honoring the fine work and contributions of our former Meadville police officer, Johnny Foster, by renaming Willow Street in his honor. Many of us here and at home have fond memories of Mr. Foster, of his wisdom, his kindness, and as an officer and a school resource officer, and as a dear friend. I would also like to share our deep appreciation to Officer Foster's family for the many contributions he made to our community. You have our thanks from a grateful community. And to the City Council, I would ask that at this moment when you are recognizing and honoring this man of color for his service to this community, that you also reflect on and resolve as elected officials to commit to a hiring process for police that does everything possible to identify, recruit, and hire officers who are more representative of our diverse Meadville community that they are asked to serve. The openings created by the resignation of our 4C police officers provides an important opportunity to commit yourselves to search for, recruit, and hire individuals who will bring different perspectives and experiences to the job of keeping our community safe. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Was there anyone else signed up? There was a couple people and crossed off, changed their minds. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Mayor, did you want to ask if anyone else did want to speak now in case they didn't sign in?
No. Does anybody else want to speak?
On any of it?
Okay. Gary, you want to give us an update on the emergency disaster, please?
Sure. The COVID emergency update, you're aware, if you've been watching any of the news, that the Delta variant of the virus is on the rise, mainly among unvaccinated people. So we do ask that, if it's safe for you to do so, consult with your doctor and please get the vaccine if you can. Crawford County is still lagging. The state as a whole has a little over half the people vaccinated. Crawford County is a little under 38%. So later on in the agenda, we will be lifting the emergency declaration following the state's lead on that. So that will be under new business. And that's all I have for the COVID.
Okay, thank you. Katie, notices of executive sessions?
Your Honor, an executive session was held on June 16th, 2021 to discuss personnel and real estate, and on July 13th, 2021 to discuss personnel.
Thank you. Motion to approve the minutes of June 9th, town hall meeting.
Motion.
Second?
second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye. We have the regular meeting of June 16th.
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa? Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye. Katie, communications, please. We have one letter of communication.
Your Honor, received an email from Joe Tompkins, Annette Lynch, and Dan Walk. Attached to the email was a petition regarding Allegheny College's proposed demolition of 4 houses on Prospect Street. The attached email stated that they've delivered hard copies of the petition to senior officials at the college, and they wanted to bring it to council's attention as well. The petition regards the college's plan to demolish the 4 college-owned houses on the south side of Prospect Street between Park Avenue and Smith Street. The neighborhood is strongly opposed to this plan. As the petition states, they believe this project would strictly benefit Allegheny College at the expense of the surrounding neighborhood, and they've asked the college to be a good neighbor and take into consideration the integrity of the neighborhood and the desires of the people who live there. So far, they've collected 51 signatures for the petition, which is the same number of people they've talked to. In other words, the entire neighborhood is unanimously opposed to the demolition plan. The college acknowledged receipt of the petition on June 29th and promised to provide more feedback after July 4th. No feedback has yet been received. They wanted to make council aware of the neighborhood's position and asked that council recognize the detrimental impact of demolition on the neighborhood and help advocate an alternative course of action.
Okay, thank you, Katie. I'm sure we'll be discussing that later. Manager's report, Gary.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, so I just have 2 items. The first one is to introduce Rena Wozleski. She's, Rena, if you want to stand real quick. Rena will be our new Vista. Intern is the best word I can use. So it's not exactly an intern, but she'll be helping us out this year for help with implementing the stamp report recommendations. She'll be getting with the home rule process study, and she'll come to council with how that goes about, and if council wants to seek that as one of the main recommendations in the stamp. She'll also look into help with economic development, downtown revitalization, those types of efforts to help out staff, kind of augment staff. And it only costs us $1,500 a year. So this will be later in new business. We'll actually be approving the MOA with Lake Effect Leaders, which is the regional VISTA program for Rena services. And so that'll be under new business, but I just wanted to introduce everyone to Rena. She'll be hopefully be starting Friday, I believe, in the office here. She's been doing some preliminary work on her own off-site, but we're hoping to bring her in at the end of this week. So.
Welcome, and looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. The only other item I had is you're aware that we have a Heidi Cooper Park redevelopment project coming up. Looking at the entire park, how we would improve it, what kind of amenities do we want there. So to kick that off, staff is hosting in August 2nd at 6 p.m. It's a Monday meeting at Heidi Cooper Park in the pavilion. So anyone that's interested in the future of Heidi Cooper Park, what if we think we want to be there, please come, please share your thoughts. From that, we'll be putting together an actual plan that then we will reconvene a few months later for the community to react to and give us more input, and then hopefully next year seek more funding, and maybe the year after that start actual construction. So August 2nd at 6 p.m. at Heidi Cooper. If anyone's interested, come on down.
Do we have those postcards?
I of course didn't bring any with me, but
In office.
yeah.
There's some at the table just in the lobby.
We'll get that out there. It's on our Facebook page. It's like, the YMCA.
There's a lot of people.
That's something. Yeah. With that, Your Honor, that's all I have.
Okay. Council members' priority for 2021. We have 2 put on hold. To be honest, I've been on vacation, so I haven't followed up to see if we've got that list together yet that was sent out, or we're still working on that.
Actually, that's the first item under new business. We did get some input back from council on that online survey, and we'll go over that under new business.
Okay, great. And countywide reassessment, we just put on hold for now. Council subcommittees report. Autumn, Larry, anything on beautification?
Beautification committee met this month, is planning a few fundraisers. We're gonna sell some mums in the fall, and which I think Victoria brought to council the idea before we moved on. And we're also, the Visitors Bureau has Meadville flags. I bought one. Looks good. So we got Meadville flags and the small flags, the 3x5, and then the small banners, and a portion of those sales goes to beautification committee, so we can have some money to beautify our town. So that was, and we're gonna start also doing some just like downtown cleanups before first Friday, second Saturday. We're gonna go downtown and pull weeds and clean litter and make our downtown beautiful. So those are,
Sounds great, thank you. Jim, anything on finance?
I think I'll defer until we get to that part of the meeting where we discuss the 3-year capital plan.
Okay. I just want to point out, Tim, welcome back. I'm sure you weren't planning on coming back out of retirement, but Tim is going to be filling in as an intern until we choose a new finance director. We appreciate you doing that. Thank you. You're welcome. French Creek Council of Governments, Sean?
I missed the meeting.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't have to make it either?
no, tell me when you're
NAACP Subcommittee, Autumn, Larry, anything to add?
Nothing at this moment.
We did meet, the subcommittee met with Gary, interim city manager. Chief Totten was not able to make it, so I think by and large, a lot of the kind of concerns that were brought up by the committee, concerns around hiring, especially the 4 new officers that the department's hiring for, were addressed to the extent that they could be, and I think that those conversations are ongoing.
I'm curious, when you had your discussion, because not many people understand the process that we have to go through with hiring, did you guys get into details on that or discuss that during your committee?
Yeah. I mean, I think Gary did a good job conveying and then following up with information that Chief Totten provided. I learned that there is a process that I've written down, but I don't know if I remember up to. There's several kind of reviews before it kind of gets, and folks have to go through the academy. There's accreditation and a few steps. I think that there's still desire on the community's part to see what can be done within that, right? And so.
Many people don't realize, because they're going through the process of hiring police officers, especially the police officers with the civil service. When you go through that civil service, you have to be tested for that, and then you're ranked in the civil service for the officer. And I do know that the vets have first choice, I believe, to honor them. Some of the public doesn't know that, so if you have any questions on how the hiring procedure works, we'll have a new city manager later today. You can give her a call and she'll explain it to you. There you go, first responsibility. Okay, thanks, Autumn. Larry. Parking Subcommittee, Autumn, Larry, anything?
No, please.
Okay. Redevelopment, I haven't any communication of you. Recreation Subcommittee, other than the park, we haven't really. And tax exempt gifts. Jim?
Nothing to report.
Sean? No? Okay, great. Under old business, authority boards and commissions. Sorry, do we have any appointments?
No, Your Honor, just the continuing 2 vacancies, one as a zoning hearing board alternate and one on the market authority.
I guess discussion of the city of Meadville's 3-year capital plan. So,
May I interject very quickly?
Sure.
I anticipate this might be a lengthy discussion in the interest of everyone here. If they're not interested in maybe staying for all of this discussion, please feel free to absolutely stay if you're interested. But there's 2 items I think that a lot of people are here for, the Prospect Street discussion and also Officer Foster. Would the council be at all interested in moving those up ahead of the capital discussion so that we can, if anyone is interested in going, we can?
yeah, I think that would be
Yeah.
good.
I think people should have to stay till the end.
I have to stay, so.
This could go
Remember, Autumn
forever.
said that.
I'm just kidding, yeah, let's move.
I think then we can move to item C under old business, which is the Officer Foster resolution.
Okay, let me get there. Okay, yes, we have a resolution. Katie?
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville honoring the life and contribution of Johnny Foster by the dedication of Willow Street from South Main Street to Liberty Street in his memory, under and pursuant to the Outstanding Citizen Recognition Program adopted by the City Council of the City of Meadville. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that whereas under and pursuant to the Outstanding Citizen Recognition Program of the City of Meadville, as adopted by the City Council of the City of Meadville pursuant to Resolution Number 20 of 2007, former Meadville City Police Officer Johnny Foster is hereby recognized as an outstanding citizen of the City of Meadville. And whereas the special contributions of Mr. Foster to the City of Meadville and its citizens give rise to this resolution, and the dedication of the portion of Willow Street between South Main Street and Liberty Street. And whereas the dedication made by this resolution shall continue until further action of the Council of the City of Meadville. And whereas appropriate signage evidencing the dedication made pursuant to this resolution shall be established and maintained in the areas dedicated to the memory of Mr. Foster. And whereas the dedication made by this resolution is and shall not be construed to be the renaming of any street, way, or place for U.S. Mail, 911, or any other purpose, the dedicated area created by this resolution shall not be identified by any person or entity in any official addressing for any purpose whatsoever. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the portion of Willow Street between South Main Street and Liberty Street is hereby dedicated to the memory of former Meadville City Police Officer Johnny Foster.
Motion,
So moved.
dedication,
Second.
discussion?
I'll start.
Yep.
Mr. Foster was the parole guy that came, not the parole, the guy that came in, the safety officer when I was in school. So I thought about that and I was thinking, wow, that's pretty cool, and that's the first police officer I ever knew. It was him. And I just remember those flags with the green rings on them. That's the thing I always remember about that. There'd be a picture in the Tribune and the class would be there. So that was interesting. And then also, Tammy, his daughter, has both of my sons. That's at First District. Mrs. Geiger had, I think, Sean, who had one of my sons, and Mrs. Costello had Ryan. So it's just interesting. It's a small world. Everybody turns around and around and around. And I miss seeing it at the basketball games.
Yeah, I didn't know Mr. Foster myself, but it's clear what an impact he's had, and really appreciate y'all being here. And I'm glad that we can do this and we can memorialize folks who have had an impact on our community.
Thank you.
John was a really nice guy. I knew him since I had hair.
That many years?
About 40. And he was an excellent ambassador for police and community relations.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, not only was he, city police officer, but he's family. And that meant a lot. He was one of the very first family members that had a position here in Meadville, which influenced me and let me know that things were changing, getting better. And I can remember back when we had our problems, racial problems, to be for real. I'll never forget the day at the school. Mr. Foster was there, and he was making sure that everybody got out and got home safely. As a matter of fact, he followed. There was a bus he followed to make sure that we got home safely. And if you ever had a problem, he was a person that you could talk to. He cared. He cared about Meadville. He cared about us kids. He would always spend time talking to us, and again, watching out for us, make sure, he had that voice, and he would sometimes say to me, "Boy, does your mom know where you're at?" And it was like, okay, so, but yeah, he was very, very important in guiding a lot of us young kids at that time. And I just like to see someone else step up into those shoes, which are going to be hard to fill because he was a heck of a man.
Well, I'm going to share some things about Johnny that many of you may not know, but he was an animal lover too, in case you weren't aware of that. We had a small puppy. I wish I could tell you how many years ago, but I think you might have had hair when this happened. That fell into Rainbow Lake, the exchange coming out of Rainbow Lake. I don't know if any of you remember the story. And Johnny responded to the call because it was my responsibility to rescue the animals. And one of us were going to have to go down between the fence and where the water was. And at that time I was much thinner than I am today. But what Johnny did do is he made sure I didn't fall all the way in. The man got down on his hands and knees in mud in his uniform, which we probably had to clean, but anyway, to help me get this animal out. And when we got the animal out, he was very pleased on how much we cared about animals. So if you didn't know that, he certainly loved animals. And if you love animals, you normally love children and you love people. So in most cases, so great recognition for him. And glad I had a chance to work with him many years ago. So with that, roll call, please.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa? Vogel? Aye. Stearns?
Aye. You can do this?
No.
I am?
Yes.
I just handed this, so bear with me. A resolution of the city, council of the city of Meadville honoring the life and contributions of Johnny Foster by the dedication of Willis Street from South Main Street to Liberty Street in his memory under and pursuant to the Outstanding Citizen Recognition Program adopted by the City Council of the city of Meadville. So I'm going to read the rest of this. One of the family members come up, please. You read this whole thing?
Yes, you did.
What else do we do? What else can we do?
What else do we do? Well, we come forward.
Oh, okay. Do you want to go with me? We can pass it around. The popcorn read it. Everyone gets a chance.
This is what happens when you go on vacation. You totally forget what's going on in the city.
We read everything to us. Make sure we get it. This is my.
I think it's a two-page resolution.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to present this to you.
Once forward, once back.
Appreciate it. We love him, we all love him.
He was
He
very
was
much.
good for this community.
Yes, he was.
And I hope we get somebody to fill his shoes.
We'll
It's
try.
gonna be hard.
It is going to be hard.
And
Thank you.
As his daughter, I would like to say thank you for such a great memory and honoring. I love to hear stories. I can't go to Walmart without not hearing a story. But to me, he was the best dad in the world. But as I grew up, I knew he was so much more to everyone else, not only his family. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see what else I can screw up. Okay.
So, Your Honor, the other item then is the Prospect Street under new business 11B, Allegheny College's.
Thanks.
See ya.
I tell you, I never got hit by a car, so I'm not sure that was a good job.
You saved me from drowning.
All right.
Go ahead.
Mike's still out there, Mike Crowley. Yes, so we had talked about, we had the petition, of course, before you. So like Allegheny College's plan, as I understand it, is behind you. I have projected on the screen a screenshot of what those, of the map, showing where those are. You'll see on the right Park Avenue going up in north and south. Prospect is, of course, right here. And Allegheny College owns these four houses here that are immediately west of the parking lot, west and north of the parking lot. This one with a crude X on it has already been demolished. And this house here that you can't quite see is privately owned. So as we understand it, these four houses would be demolished, and the eventual plan would be to expand the parking lot. I bet my guess to this point here, maybe over to here. So that's the overall plan as I understand it.
Did the college own the one with the X?
Yes, and that one was demolished already. There's one house between the college-owned properties and Smith Street there, on the left side there.
That actually went through the sale, tax sale, that house.
It did. It did. So that's the plan. Now, I will say, a plan to expand the parking is not currently permitted under the zoning, so they'd either need a legislative change by council or a variance granted by the zoning hearing board for that to happen. I can't grant approval to that as zoning officer. So with that, and given that the petition from the community, I was curious, council had agreed then to maybe discuss and see if council wanted to take an official position on that. Not much we can do. Frankly, from a legal perspective, from an ordinance perspective, they own the houses, they can knock them down. They can turn it into green space, but they cannot, as it stands, turn it into parking. So with that, really, it would be a question of whether council wants to take a position on it, a pressure position, if you will, to say we don't think this is a good idea or we think this is a great idea. It's up to council.
I just one more question before you get going. How, are we sure that's what their intentions are? Have they announced it? Have they applied for a permit?
We have not received any applications for permits, but that's what's
How do we
been,
know that this is their intention?
that's what's been intimated to me.
It's in their master.
It is in their master plan, so we can go online and see it if we wanted
I
to?
think so.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if that is what they're planning on doing, if there's something formal.
What I'd like to do is to have a meeting set up with them and have a discussion with the college. Because this goes back to a few years ago when they put the students back on college. I think we were just probably starting there then at that time. That those houses were fixed up and that they at one time talked about reselling those houses, but then they moved their students into them. I am not in favor of any way, shape, or form of those houses being torn down with the conversation that I had prior with the college. So I don't know how you guys feel, but I would certainly like to meet with the college and make sure they understand what was discussed, because things do change at the college. But what was discussed with those housings up there, because you put property or parking in there, you're going to lower the value of those people's property, and that is a residential neighborhood. So if council's okay with it, is it allowing me or a group of us, I don't care, it could be public for all I care, to meet with them, I would like to do that. I want to know for a fact where they're heading, and if that is where they're heading, that's not what was discussed about 5 years ago, that I recall.
It was longer than that.
It was before Jim left, I know that.
Sure, so I would be amenable to a meeting, but I also feel like I've got the context and background to, and it sounds like you're against the demolition, so I think that I would be maybe in favor of kind of formally taking making a stand as council and following up with a meeting, not knowing what the timeline is, so maybe with that I would move that we as council kind of formally oppose the demolition of these 4 properties on Prospect Street.
Okay, and then we could still set a meeting up.
I think you should set a meeting up first, make sure.
I'm okay with the meeting. It was a motion, I don't know, do we?
We have a second.
Larry, was
So-
that a second?
Yes, so now it's open for discussion.
I think you should know for sure that is their intentions before you condemn them.
Well, I don't think condemning them, I think we need to sit down and understand what has been talked about in the past, what's happening in the future, that I'm aware of. And,
I mean, I don't remember them, I've been here 6, 7 years, and I don't remember you ever saying that about that street, so I don't know.
yeah, oh yeah, that we talked
So, I
about
mean,
it.
so it happened before I was here.
That's why the rehab started on the properties, to rehab
I
those.
remember when they rehabbed them.
To go back even further, it's when the college did purchase, took the students
Remember
out
that
of there.
Student died in that fire down on the end of the street?
Not in my block, but
Yeah.
down on Baldwin Street, yeah, further down
Corner
Baldwin.
of Baldwin and Prospect.
But what I'm talking about is when they put the students back on the property, we were concerned that the landlords at that point, because those were all students' rentals up there. And we were concerned when those students went back onto the campus, what was going to happen to those homes. They weren't in the best of shape. Some of them even shouldn't have been lived in. So then they said that they were going to rehab them, and I was under the impression, it was talked about, that when professors and people would come in to possibly look for a job there, that it could be sold to one of them or put back on the market. So that's a discussion I remember, and I just want to follow up with them because I sat in that meeting.
Gary, if, I mean, this doesn't show, it cannot show. Of course, this is a rather steep grade, but if you demolish those 4 properties and turn it into parking lot, might that create a significant stormwater runoff problem for the remaining properties? All 2 of them, I believe it is, on that, plus below Smith Street.
Well, they would need to comply with their stormwater management ordinance, which would control the vast majority of it, but surely it would create more impervious surface in the city that we may or may not need.
Something to discuss.
Yeah, I think it's also a shame to see 4 houses go, especially when people need places to live, and if the college doesn't need them, there's plenty of ways that they can be put to use to house people. That's maybe a separate kind of conversation, but certainly you can't get them back, right? Like, once you've torn them down, you can't get them back, and you can't get that neighborhood back. And if the college would want to dispose of them, right, you could still have the neighborhood intact and provide
They
needed
could
housing.
even, just thinking off the top of my head, instead of demolishing them, maybe work out something with redevelopment where they bought them and put them back on the tax roll. I just think it really needs to be, looked into instead of just saying, letting them just tear it down. I mean, they're
Sure,
good houses.
Yeah, so maybe part of the conversation, right, if there's a follow-up conversation with Allegheny, could be, right, like, if these houses were to stay up, right, what's possible, is selling them or disposing of them in a different way possible.
I really don't have a problem having a public meeting with that.
Let's see if they want to do it.
I mean, they do own the property, they can certainly tear them down without our consent. We know that, but let's be happy neighbors in this, have a good working relationship, which we've always, at least I have with them. I'd like to continue that. So, I guess I definitely want to meet. I don't know if other council members want to. If we got more than 3, it's going to have to be a public meeting.
As long as you go, I'm fine.
Would you like to join me, or just?
I would be happy to. I don't think a public meeting is a bad idea, but that's a lot. I understand, so.
Well, Council, are you okay with Autumn and I meeting with them?
Yeah.
And then if we feel that we need to bring that back to council for a public meeting for the public's input, then we can do that.
Yeah.
Now, the agreed property owners, they probably already know this, but you absolutely have the right to attend any zoning hearing regarding a variance or use by special exception, and to state your objections there.
Yeah, I think.
So you do have that additional safeguard.
So
what we're going to do, we're going to set a meeting up. I don't care who they set up with, but Autumn and I will meet with them.
Sure.
And then have it, and just make sure, you're right, just make sure that we have the right information and.
So we are within like a discussion of on a motion now? Do we want to?
Yeah, this is still discussion.
Right, do we want to call the question?
Yeah, you guys have any other comments?
Okay, well, the motion was?
To formally oppose a demolition of these 4 properties, is that?
They own the ones on, I'm not agreeing, they own the ones on West College, they demolished one of them last summer. Remember, they own all the ones on the other side, next block down.
Elizabeth, would it be smart if, during this motion, that we put in there that 2 council members are going to meet with them?
Put into the motion?
Your motion that you already made.
I don't think my motion's contingent on anything,
Right.
at least, not the way I.
She can amend her motion, but her motion as it is wouldn't, I don't know that that's material to the motion that's on the table.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I disagree with the motion because I just don't think it's a good idea to say they're doing something that we don't even know. If you meet with them, to come back, then I gladly agree with your motion. I just don't think it's the right thing to do. Because you don't know that that's what you're doing. Unless if you had a paper the paper you have is nice, but that's not proof that the college is planning on tearing anything down.
I'm afraid that the proof will come when the houses are down.
Well, they're allowed
I
to
mean,
tear them down.
and it could.
We can't do anything about it. I agree with you. I don't want those houses on the ground. I'd much prefer people living there. I'd like to see the city go back on tax rolls. I don't know if they're paying taxes on it or not.
They're not.
They're not?
No. That's why I
But
said.
there's
I'd like
nothing to
to-
pay taxes on if they take them down and.
Right.
It's just making it.
They probably should have had they've been making money on it if they're rented, but I don't know.
Well, we have a motion on the table. Unless you don't want to amend, we'll go ahead and go with the motion that you already, roll call.
Donahue,
No.
McKnight,
Yes.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Stearns.
Aye. Okay, so then what we'll do is we'll still meet with them, we'll come back with the information to all council. Sound good? All right. Where are we gonna go now?
You are? We can, I guess we can go right back to the regular agenda and talk about the capital plan.
Gary.
Oh, very cold.
So is Elizabeth.
You want my coat? Yeah, not the word itself. I mean,
Pretty good,
I can
long
get that
sleeve
to-
shirt.
I can get that to the thrift store, make some big bucks on that.
Okay,
You were
so,
talking people's clothes.
so,
Go on.
Okay, thank you. Discussion, City of Meadville's three-year capital plan.
so we had talked, at the last couple of meetings, we talked about the overall plan, and at the last meeting, we talked about police and fire departments. In the meantime, we have taken action. Fire Chief Wiley has gotten a little bit more specific information, some more specific quotes on some of the items that he wants in his capital. And we were able to secure about $51,000 in reductions in what the requests were based on more firm quotes. And actually, we also received a grant for a small portion of the radios. So from a fire department standpoint, that dropped it down about $51,000. But moving along then, what we have left to discuss is public works, administration, parking, and city electrician. So with that, again, the overall request now, overall borrowing request would be $4,159,959 as it is before you today. The Public Works Department, and that's the overall borrowing, not just Public Works, of course. So the Public Works is looking for some improvements to the Public Works garage, some repairs mainly, some repairs to City Hall, some roof replacement and concrete driveway repair at the fire department, some electrical repairs, elevator work, some rust repairs at the parking garage, some repairs and landscaping at the incinerator on Liberty Street Extension, work at the parks, upgrades at the parks, which includes Heidi Cooper Park, Bicentennial Park, and some Lincoln Avenue playground improvements. Includes money for Rainbow Dam. As you know, we're going through a design process, preliminary design process on the rehabilitation of Rainbow Dam, which is going to come into several $1 million, and we're hoping to be able to get some more additional state and federal funding to help with that. Include some money for that. Some money for potential demo and rebuild of the old shop, which is on North Street, immediately east of Porter Street Footbridge, down right next to Mill Run. Some work there. The regular Brick Street paving, asphalt paving, curb replacement, budgets that we see every year, some ADA ramp replacements. Is also seeking funding for a new wheel loader, which would replace a 26-year-old loader that we have. A couple new dump trucks, actually 3 new dump trucks, a new pickup truck, street sweeper. These are all requests from the Public Works Director, and those would mainly be funded out of general fund borrowing, as well as the city stormwater fund that we charge $90 per resident per year. So a lot of it is going to be funded by that as well, because it has a dual role, a lot of these vehicles. So the remaining items are technology issues that they have, computers, printers, things like that. So with that, any questions on the Public Works?
Gary, I had written some questions for you, and you spoke with Nate about those. Just I guess the one question was whether or not the capital improvements to the existing building were just delaying the inevitable, or whether there's enough life left in the building that it's worthwhile. My understanding is he says it's worthwhile. Is that correct?
Yeah, structurally, overall, it's still in decent shape. You could get many more years out of it. It has more to do with systems, some just minor repairs that have to go on. So yeah, he thinks there's quite a bit of life left in it, so long as some issues are addressed now.
And the second question was whether it'd be cost effective to not build on the North Street parcel and build downtown below the bridge, and possibly sell that parcel rather than incurring the expense of tearing down a building, building a new one. You would at least save the demolition costs, and someone might want that property subject to zoning variances.
Yeah, for that, he said it's worth looking into for sure. The issue will become, of course, you'd be building in a floodway down at the Public Works garage as well. And it might be a matter of space as well down there, believe it or not. They need a lot of room down there for maneuvering and things like that. So as far as putting a building down there, he certainly would be interested in looking at it. But from an overall cost savings perspective, cost effectiveness perspective, he couldn't comment one way or the other until he looked into it more. But it's certainly interesting to him.
The line item on parks in particular, and maybe that there are other ones, but I believe that parks specifically, improvements can be funded with American Rescue Plan Act funds, and I wonder if there's value in trying to kind of offset some of what we borrow and build those projected improvements into the plans for those funds.
That is certainly something we can look at. That is being liberally interpreted regarding parks for outdoor recreation, giving people space to go out and recreate and being away from each other, not being so tightly together. So we could certainly look into that and potentially come back to council with some ideas on that, on offsetting some of our already planned improvements at Bicentennial, Ida Cooper, Fifth Ward Playground. And then maybe we could take some of that ARPA money and reduce some of the borrowing. We could certainly look at that if council wishes to do that. We could probably come back by August 4th with some ideas on that.
We're not quite there yet, but the paving for the parking lots comes out of the parking fund borrowing, or would we be borrowing it and they'd be reimbursing us?
There is already money in the 2018 parking fund borrowing, 2018, so that money is just sitting there.
All right, good. I had expressed some reservations about long-term borrowing for short-term capital items like technology. I still have those reservations, although I know that interest rates are incredibly low right now, so if you're going to make that move, this is the time to do it rather than wait a year or two. But I would like council to consider establishing capital reserve funds for police. We already have one for the fire department, which is very restrictive, and public works. It could be short-term, it could be short and long-term capital borrowing. And I was thinking of funding it with various fees. Gary, you and I had a little conversation, and you talked about possibly doing a dedicated tax assessment specifically for capital borrowing, or maybe some combination thereof. I don't know what council's thoughts are on that.
I appreciated the proposal on that you sent around, Jim. Do you have any sense, and I'm trying to find it in my email, but it's not gonna work out. Do you have any sense of like, based on how you had kind of proposed that we, like the sources of those, funds, how long it would take them to kind of accrue?
I did not have the time to look through this past budget, which should have the fees under each department. Like if you took non-meter violations as an example, I suspect that appears in the budget as a line item for revenue for the police department. If you have inspections done by the fire department, if we dedicated those, we probably have a line item, or maybe it's just all lumped together. I don't know, because I haven't checked. Based on what we'd be borrowing now, if you want to include long-term capital, let me back up. The aerial truck we have now cost about $400,000 when we bought it. Now we're looking at $1 million for a combined aerial truck and, pumper.
Mm-hmm.
At that rate, 20 years from now, in a future council, I might be here, I'm not sure, wants to borrow money, that will be a $2 million piece of equipment. In rough figures, that would require $70,000 per year. This is if you don't want to borrow. $70,000 per year put into a dedicated fund for fire equipment, and that would just cover our most expensive machine. Or you could cover a couple of machines over the years and resign yourself to the fact that in 30 years you're going to have to borrow money for a new pumper. A new aerial. I'm hoping that we could look at the various fees and generate, on the low side, $25,000 per fund. And this would not include a real estate fund for the sale of the city building or vacant lots that we have had over the years that we've sold, or any other city-owned property. I can think of a couple that we have right now. So I would recommend that those be funded, or that be funded separately and dedicated specifically for real estate related items, so that when you need a new roof on this building, or you need repairs on the fire department building, which I think we actually have in here, you could be generating money from a real estate capital reserve dedicated solely to real estate acquisitions and real estate capital repairs and improvements. Does that help?
It does help. So I think, so what I'm understanding is that like long-term, right, it helps us out because then we've got the reserves set aside to cover the expenses that we need to, but that there, we wouldn't see impacts on this borrowing plan, right?
No, no, I did a quick calculation and I used an amortization table, which is not how bonds are paid back, but at 4.15 million for 20 years at 2%, that would come up to about $252,500 per year on this borrowing. Tim, you think that's close?
That is on a straight line amortization schedule.
Yeah.
That isn't what we would suggest to fund this though.
Okay.
I don't know if they talked about how they would fund.
We didn't talk about that.
The John McShane, who's the bond broker, would institute what they call a wrap, where they take the monies that we're going to borrow and they put it around the existing debt that we have, so we keep a level debt service.
Okay.
And so In this particular instance, I can't remember exactly what it was, 4.6 million, but we're gonna be looking at like 130,000 for the first few years. So we keep it very low in the first few years, and then they gradually fill in where other bond issues are being paid off, and then pay more of the principal back.
Okay.
So that's the idea of a wrap. We probably instituted that over quite a few years now, to try to keep the payments low, because you're right, you'd be paying $250,000 a year if you just did a straight line borrowing on this. And to speak about taking like the current revenues for fees and stuff, the only problem with that is you're taking away from the
We have to
general fund.
replace it.
So it always sounded good in theory over the years, and then a year or two later, somebody would say, well, why is that 20,000 being transferred out of the general fund? We need that so we don't have to have tax increase. And so then away that goes. So
Right, but
every good intention ends up not working.
I understand. But of course, the issue is then we have 30 or 40 or $50,000 worth of computers that we have to replace all at the same time, and no capital per se.
Oh, absolutely.
To replace
Yeah, I
it.
understand that. The real estate one you talked about, I always said that's a great idea. Anytime you get one-time monies, use it on infrastructure. You would never want to just plug a hole in the budget, because then the next year you need to replace that again. So, excellent idea there.
So I would say that I share, Jim, and not to speak for you, but I heard some concerns right around borrowing, recognizing that like now's the time to do it. I understand that the rates are good, the market's favorable, but I think given right the recommendations from the strategic management planning program, which said like we should have a longer term kind of more thought out capital borrowing plan, and also given right these American Rescue Plan Act funds coming to us that we don't have a plan for using, and also like a potential infrastructure bill coming from the national level. I part of me is like, you know, I know that we're like in this race, right, to kind of capture this good interest rate, but I also don't want us to borrow 4.5 or 6 million in this moment, when we realize that maybe we didn't have to, or we could have thought things out more longer term. That is where my head is at in all of this.
Is there a drop dead date? In other words, can we say we intend to borrow 4.15 million, and then when they price it, we can say, guess what, we're not gonna go quite that high, we still have that option?
Yeah, when you pass the issue, we usually set that high limit that you're allowed to go up to, and so you'd set it a higher than what 4.1 is. You might set it at 8 million, knowing you're not gonna borrow that, but you set that. So at any given time that you say, let's pull the trigger and let's go get it, we can do that. I did talk to John the other day, and I'm always concerned when good rates, you wanna jump on it, but he felt pretty comfortable with these rates, probably are gonna be okay for the next 90 days. But then again, you never know with the world and the way things are, if something's gonna turn on its head, so kind of a crapshoot sometimes waiting.
So we would set, 8 mil or whatever,
Yeah.
right? We say we're gonna borrow this maximum amount, and then how much time would we have from setting that to actually borrowing, like?
Well, again, it's just taking that
Issues.
risk that if something happens tomorrow and some country does something stupid and all of a sudden the rates go up, then we're done.
But they're not locked in if we say we're
No,
gonna issue?
no. All you're doing is authorizing the borrowing, and it's still until John actually goes out and sells the bonds and sets that amount. You're just authorizing them to do it. We've done that before. If rates are starting to climb up, you may give them authorization, but we may say, let's wait until that rate gets to a certain level, then go ahead and borrow. That's what you're giving them authorization to do. But until he actually goes out and sells them, then that rate can't be set until that time.
Is 2% realistic? Do you think it might be slightly higher or slightly lower?
I can't remember what he said, but yeah, 2.5%. And you're talking a blended rate. Obviously, the short-term bonds, the ones you pay back in quickly, are going to be lower interest rates. The long ones out for 20 or 25 years are going to be the higher rate. But I think the blended probably could be easily 2.5%.
Jim, what's the normal cost of us doing that? About 70,000?
What do you think?
I'm trying to remember. I would say 2.5% to 3% of the bond issue is the issuance cost, and that includes the cost of insurance. You basically buy a AAA rating to get low interest rates, but the insurance cost is pretty low. and then you pay, obviously, the broker to sell the bonds.
Right.
And that's always a catch there, because if you're a person working on commission, you want to see a good commission to you to sell the bonds, and so you're going to do a better job selling them lower. So sometimes you might pay a better rate to the commission, for a commission, and get a lower interest rate, which saves you money over the next 20, 25 years. So, but yeah, I think generally 2.5% to 3% of the total is the issuance cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they gave us a deal once, a couple of years ago, did they not? I remember.
Not sure what you mean by deal, but.
Well, I mean, a better rate. We got a much better rate.
Yeah, I think there was.
There was a mix-up somewhere.
Yeah, there was a mix-up in some cost, and it came to light after the fact, and I think they kind of ate it. So,
Okay.
yeah, that probably wasn't a premeditated thing. It just happened.
Should we be replacing our capital equipment, I'm looking at trucks, a little more often, so that we don't get rammed? I mean, in 2 years, we're looking at $1 million worth of vehicles.
I mean, that's always the balancing act, right? I mean, you want to save, you want to run that as long as you can, but once those maintenance costs start going up, when do you hit that sweet spot where it's just cheaper to buy a new vehicle? I think they've done a good job on really maxing out a lot of these. I mean, you see 26 years old, 21 years old, 20 years old, 16, 15. I mean, the youngest one over there is the street sweeper, which is 9 years old and is due. So yeah, I mean, they've done a good job of just really making that work. We have a great mechanic down there that's able to make things work, but eventually, yeah, it's just going to be too expensive to maintain some of these, and that's really why Nathan's coming to council now and saying we really need to do something with these so we can get the work done. Having that stormwater fund help back up some of that would be good. And also note, like with the vac leaf loader, we're looking to get the second vacuum leaf loader, the self-propelled one, the self-contained one. We're looking to get that for basically for $20,000 of the stormwater fund, because 90% would be funded out of DEP grant. So we're really trying to make that work as well. So Nathan did take a few items off his initial request. We said, are you able to do any better? And he took a few vehicles off, but he said this is something that just eventually they're just going to they're going to sit there because we can't get the parts for it, or we can't. It's too expensive to fix, especially with some of these dump trucks that you see for $180,000. So it'd be very helpful if we could get that money to replace that equipment.
I know I'm going back to a different department, but how long will it be until we have to replace another fire engine? Are we going to be coming 3 years from now? What's that?
From what I hear, not long.
You recall we have three now. We have two pumpers. We have a lead pumper, we have a reserve pumper, and we have the aerial.
Right.
The chief's plan is to replace the old pumper, the reserve pumper, and the current aerial with what's called a quint, which is a little bit smaller aerial. And we just found out in the last couple of weeks that the new 2004 pumper, the frame rails are rusted out to the point that I'm not sure how far to go with this. They're pretty bad, and it's going to be quite expensive in at least 5 digits. Maybe multiple 5 digits, if that makes any sense, to fix. And it has to happen soon because it's our lead pumper. That was the good one. That was the youngest one. So to your point, hopefully not imminently. Hopefully we can get this fixed and we don't have to go out and maybe look for a used one from some other department, which would be frankly the alternative at this point, which is not the preferred alternative. But so hopefully we're able to fix it for 20, 30 grand, and we'll have to figure that out. But as opposed to spending $500,000 on a new one. So hopefully that would be another 10 to 15 years if we can get this taken care of. It seems to be an anomaly with what's going on right now. If we get it fixed, it won't happen again. But to your point, that's hopefully 10 to 15 years with this fixed this year.
I know, and this is a variation on a question that Larry asked at the last meeting. There are a number of volunteer fire departments throughout the state and elsewhere that are becoming insolvent, and some of them have fairly new equipment. And I'm wondering if it might be cost effective to look at a 2 or 3 or 4-year-old piece of equipment that would hopefully cost about 40% less than a brand new one. I'm just picking a figure there.
Yeah, one of the issues with that is that if they go insolvent, a lot of times there's debt that's already hanging out on that equipment. We've seen that in some of the local departments here, frankly.
Yeah.
Is that there's debt on that equipment already, so are we able to even get to that if the lender is like essentially taking that back if they go insolvent or not? And that's one of the issues when you run into things like that. But I would agree with fire equipment, it's a little bit of a different story than with police equipment, in that used might not be the worst thing in the world. And I know the chief has looked into that somewhat, just kind of like dipped his toe in the waters just to see, is this an option for us? It's not very promising at the moment, but it's always something in the back of his head. He does have that mindset to, always try to maximize those opportunities.
Yeah, I know that there are also companies that's their job. They go out, they get fire equipment, they refurbish, and they offer warranties with them. I saw one on the way up to Rochester. There's a couple down by Pittsburgh over in Ohio. As I said before, I think that's something we should look into. It's going to save the taxpayers money. We're not going to have to raise taxes buying $1 million. I understand that we need the new pumper and the aerial, but I think we should explore every avenue before we just go ahead and throw the money at it. Who knows? We might find a piece of equipment somewhere that is in really good shape, low hours on it.
And that would probably work better for a pumper, like a run-of-the-mill, if you will, pumper, than a Quint. You'd probably be more likely to find a pumper, and that is certainly something the chief can look into when we're looking to do that replacement.
Our last aerial is in South America. We sold it to Sagertown. They sold it to a fire equipment dealer who was down by Lake Wilhelm, and last I knew it was in South America.
Yeah, I just want to say that's something that just confuses me. I've watched over the years the city would sell dump trucks to construction workers or to a private individual, and that vehicle's still on the road, and they're 20, 30 years old. That's one of my concerns. And I understand that with the streets department, their equipment is 20, 30 years old. I understand that, but I just want to go back to the police department. That's where I have a big problem with buying 3 brand new cars with only 100-some thousand miles. And I think that's one area that we need to look into a lot closer. Because I don't know if you remember when we started talking about that, I asked if it was possible we could get records, maintenance logs, and cost, and see what the yearly cost for maintenance on those vehicles are. If it might be feasible to continue to pay a lower maintenance fee to keep them on the road than spending $45,000, $50,000 for a vehicle you're keeping for 3 years and you're going to get rid of it again. And I haven't received anything, any logs or maintenance reports on it.
I don't recall a request for logs, but I could talk to Chief about it. I don't recall if I could request specifically.
Jim, anything else?
No, I think I've said enough.
Larry?
No.
Autumn? Sean? Okay, let's move on.
Just to be clear then, so what I've heard is there's a specific request to look into maybe ARPA funding to offset some of the park costs. But other than that, I don't hear anything else that we would look to change from what was before you today. We get more information on the police cars for the maintenance logs, of course. Other than that, I didn't hear anything specific. So there would be this, if it moves forward, it would be this, and then we would also talk about then the long or short-term capital, I guess. We'd look into maybe fees to set up a short-term capital, maybe talk about 984 proceeds. to set up short-term capital that would be separate from this, but I don't hear anyone saying, let's take out the IT, for example, out of this borrowing and basically commit to creating a short-term capital that we pay for that out of. I didn't hear that. I guess with the rates being as low as they are, it sounds like there's a consensus to say, well, maybe this is the best way to go with the terms as low as they are, the rates as low as they are. That's what I'm hearing. I want to make sure I'm hearing what you're saying.
I think it's the only option at this point. It might not be what we'd like, but I think it's the only option because we don't have the capital to grab for IT right now.
Just back to Larry with the used cars. I'd like to know how much when we get rid of them, what we get for them.
$500.
Nah, they're worth that in scrap. For any
That's
cars.
about what we get.
No, they don't. Someone drives those. Find out
Some
what
of
we
them are
get.
beat
That
up
would
enough.
be interesting to know, because that really isn't, 100,000 is not a lot of miles
No, it's not.
anymore. I mean, 200,000 is the normal car nowadays. I'm just curious.
Thank you.
So I believe we're at A, under new business now?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Updating council priorities for 2021. I have to admit, I did not do mine because I was on vacation and I was not working on vacation. So, pretty simple. But I'm not sure about the rest. Where are we at with it?
So what I'll say is I'll just recap real quick. A couple months ago, a month or so ago, I'm not sure how long ago, I lost track of time, is council agreed, let's put together a new, an online poll essentially among council members to pick out maybe the next top three priorities, since we've taken care of a couple of the ones that we talked about earlier this year. And so we did receive some feedback, and the ones that were chosen, there were five chosen. One of them is evaluate police staffing needs. The second one is explore options to bolster support staff. The third is develop and maintain a comprehensive multi-year capital improvement plan and asset inventory. The fourth was develop longer-term capital plan for public works. And the fifth one is prioritize public works garage repairs. Some of those may be addressed in the capital, such as prioritize public works garage repairs. There is $75,000 in there for that. But the other ones, I'm not sure that we've specifically addressed, so they'd be open for discussion. Of course, open to anything else any of the council people want to bring up. Out of these 24 priorities that were listed as immediate or short-term in the stamp plan. That's what's before you, is the 24 priorities that were recommended as high immediate priority or short-term priority.
And those were the priorities identified. How many of us did?
Should we say?
So those five were named by some of the council members and as priorities. So I guess from here, do the other members feel that those are good choices, that we should use those, not use it to go for all five, go for
Can
maybe
we
3
see
of
them
those?
somehow? Or, I mean, I'm seeing the full list. Do we have just the 5 of them?
The only
Can
place
you
I
repeat
called
them?
those, the only place I called those out were in my notes to council. But yeah, evaluate police staffing needs, explore options to bolster support staff, which is 2 below that. Develop and maintain comprehensive multi-year capital improvement plan and asset inventory. Develop longer-term capital plan for public works. And prioritize public works garage repairs. Those are the 5 that were chosen.
Was one chosen twice?
Yes, one was chosen twice, I'm sorry.
What one was that?
The multi-year.
Comprehensive multi-year capital improvement plan and asset inventory. Thank you, Katie.
2 of us agree on that?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, Jim?
Yeah.
I see you. Great.
Well, you can add that one. You
That
got
one
2.
sounds nice.
There you go.
That sounds like one you'd like to focus on. At least, it sounds like 3 members.
we've talked about it. I mean, we talked a little bit about it tonight.
And in terms of the asset inventory, that is, would be partially touched by the plan to have the asset management system that we're seeking funding for. Under STAMP Phase 2, we are seeking funding for an asset management program, which would help both property maintenance and building inspectors, as well as the Public Works Department for asset management. So we are working toward at least a component of that. The capital improvement plan would be the other component, I think, of that recommendation that we could focus on.
I guess, does it make, like, when I selected that one, and, right, to me, that is very much linked to the capital borrowing, right? Like having the plan in very much lays out what we can and should borrow, and I guess I'm just wondering, like, how does that work? If we move and borrow, and then develop a plan, I guess that's just the plan then for how we're actually gonna spend the money. At that point, we've already borrowed it, but that's just the actual allocation of that money, and it extends it a little longer. I guess the timing to me is confusing, because I would imagine that the plan would come first, and then we would borrow to execute the plan, right?
Correct.
So I guess I'm just wondering how we would make these two things sync up.
One of the issues is that we're essentially out of capital funds, so if we wanted to do any paving next year, purchase any major equipment next year, we kind of have to do it now. We've actually gone, I think it's 5 years now, past, it's usually every 3 years. It had always been every 3 years.
It being borrowing.
Okay. And now we're at about 5 years, so we're out of money for if we don't do any paving, any brickwork, anything like that, any major vehicles, there is no money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of why you're right, it is awkward. It's like, ideally, no, we wouldn't be doing the borrowing now, but just the facts on the ground dictate making this borrowing now so that we do have something moving forward for next year.
But other aspects of that plan would include things like Jim's proposal for these kind of short-term reserve capital reserve.
When you make a list like this, I would ask staff. I mean, before it was you, it was Andy. I would normally come to Andy and say, Andy, what's something here we can do? I mean, I don't want to waste all our time on things that could never be done anyway, or that we don't have the time to do, or staff has no available people or the resources, so I mean, that's where I would start with it, and actually I would ask the mayor to meet with the city manager to take care of, to see what's possible to do. I mean, because we might be looking at something here that might be like, well, we couldn't do that if we wanted to anyway. So.
I understand where you're coming from, and hopefully after tonight's vote, we're gonna have a new interim city manager that might have some ideas of her own.
I don't want to overwhelm her either.
Well, no,
Right off
we don't want to walk out the door.
Walking out the gate going, wow.
Thank God we're on the first floor in case she jumps out a window.
Yeah, walk the doors. I have an interest in that because I'd like to know what you're thinking, and we have not had that time, and until officially after this evening. And I know we were going to meet anyway, discuss things, but I think your input's going to be important for the next 6 months. So maybe what we could do is not stall it for another week, but at the next meeting, we'd have a better idea from Mary Ann what her priorities could be, where she thinks that her time should be put. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I guess I just want to point out, right, like, my understand, like, 110%, like, we should get staff input on what,
Right.
priorities are, right, especially, like, staff's already, making grant application, right, like, we should kind of try and, like, weave these things together, but, like, my understanding, right, was that staff was trying to get a sense of, like, the will of council, right, like,
Right.
what our priorities are, so they know kind of how to spend their time and prioritize their work. And so I guess I sense maybe we're getting into a little bit of a feedback loop, but I think it's important to hear from staff. But I guess I just want to point that out, that at some point someone's got to at least set some kind of priority and direction.
Yeah, I would say any of these can be done.
Right, like they
Could
came
do
out
any
of
of
a
these.
study of the city, right? And they were,
Sure.
recommendations for our
And it-
operation.
And again, as Councilwoman Vogel indicates, it's more a matter of focusing then, okay, what does council want to focus on out of that stamp? Because any of these are all good recommendations. It's just a matter of what does council want to focus on next?
Gary, I would like to, what I'm really interested in is reconsidering the assistant police chief position. And the reason, first of all, we all need to understand exactly what the duties of the chief and the police chief. Sometimes I see what's overlapping. I like to know what the salaries are. I mean, if we have a qualified chief that can do everything, then why do we have it? What is the purpose of it, other than to feel, when he's not there? I mean, but isn't there someone, those are things I'd like to discuss and find out to do,
Absolutely, and that one specifically, what I can speak a little bit to that, because what I'll say is that Stefanucci is assistant chief in every way that he's not like waiting for Totten to go on vacation
Right.
to do something. He's more of like an operations guy. He knows, he kind of runs the daily shifts, the investigations and things like that, while Totten will do overall management of the department. And I can't speak specifically to what it is, but, I'm assistant manager, and that's about this much of my job. And so like, that's about 5%, 10% of my job, and everything else is zoning, building, and everything. Similar with him. He's assistant chief, but he has so many other responsibilities that Totten doesn't do. He doesn't duplicate what those are. So I'll say that much, but to get into real detail, I think we would have that discussion with them. But I just wanted to preface it with that. I just wanted to say that much.
Great.
But that can be, we'll make a note. I mean, that's one of the ones that you'd like to see.
Yeah.
Sure. So good to have you back, Tim.
See, I thought I whispered.
You did whisper. It's a Tim whisper. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
So,
that
I mean,
gives us two.
well, I guess what I am hearing tonight is that there's at least 2, maybe more council folks interested in developing a comprehensive capital improvement plan and asset inventory, that there's already movement on that front. It sounds like there may be movement on the home rule front right now that we've got some additional staff capacity to move that forward. The other thing we had identified was a county-wide list. I mean, those are 2, do we need more? Those are 2 big things. That's a lot of staff. We're coming on budget season. That's a lot. Anyway, I mean, I guess I'm just wondering like what the next steps are, because we've tried we've tried a Google form, and we can't, I don't know like how we move.
I mean, I would be completely comfortable, and I think I probably speak for Mary Ann, and just focusing on home rule with Rena leading that effort, and with the comprehensive multi-year capital improvement plan. I mean, that could be 2-3 months worth of work pretty easily. And then once you get through that, you might say, okay, well, maybe this other priority makes more sense now that we have this in place.
Right.
Maybe we move on to that priority instead of something that we may choose now. So that might be good enough for now if council's okay with that. I don't want to push it and say, no, we have to have 3 new ones, if that doesn't make sense, so.
I'm okay with it.
I mean, there's
Yeah, I think-
also staff change. I mean, there's a lot going
There's a lot
on.
going on.
Right.
Why don't we just do it that way for now?
Yeah.
Okay, and meanwhile, of course, council can meet with Mary Ann as we move forward to see what her priorities are and what's important to her.
I'm gonna figure it out. Figure it all out first.
Thank you.
Okay, so discussion authorizing conversion of the Woodland Place from brick to asphalt. Here.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council all would have received a communication from a resident of Woodland Place, which is a brick street. Actually, I have it. It's a brick street just off of Ravine, north of the college. So this is Ravine, this is Park Ave, and then this is Woodland Place. So you'll see it's a dead end here. And the concern is this section here, it's about 200 feet. It is in pretty rough shape, and certainly could be improved upon. One of the concerns that the resident indicated was that he was notified by the Tribune that they would no longer deliver to his house, that it's in that kind of shape. I'm not sure exactly why. It is rough. I wouldn't say it's the worst in the city, but it is pretty rough. So he notified all of council. I'm not trying to pick on anyone, so.
You need readers.
Okay.
Remember,
Pay $1.25 a day for that tribute, too.
So at any event, we felt, since he notified all of council, again, as we said, so from a staff perspective, we took a look at it. And it is here before you today simply because it'd be a really quick turnaround if we wanted to make something happen this year. Okay, there's a possibility that we could add it on to the paving program, but that would require a motion of council at the August 4th meeting to authorize conversion of that street from brick to asphalt, okay?
what about the drainage? What, is there drainage work that's gonna need to be done?
Maybe a
look
little
at the
bit.
gutter, yeah. I didn't look, go ahead. Sorry.
I think there'd be some drainage that could be done. We would pull the bricks in-house and do some base repair, things like that, do some curb work, and then have it paved, probably late September, I think is where we are with that. I think it's late September, sometime in September it would be paved to be added on to our paving program for the year. If council were open to that. Now, the issue is that you would need to approve a change from brick to asphalt. Real quick, an asphalt change this year would cost roughly $35,000 to pave that section. And to do the brick replacement, which we simply cannot do this year because it would take the full crew roughly 3 weeks to pull and relay those bricks, re-pour the base, re-pour the curb and gutter, do some drainage improvements. That just can't be done this year. We do that in-house. And that would cost about $58,000 using next year's dollars. So the reason we're here today, though, is really if council wanted to do anything, it would have to be done, or at least economically would have to be done very quickly. And that's why we're before council today.
The gutters, are the gutters, do we have to replace them if you don't change the brick?
If we keep brick, yeah. We would need to
But if you do change it, you change it to we can leave the gutters that are there now?
We'd pull them. We'd pull them and pour straight curb.
Okay, just wondering. Okay. That's a lot of the streets, the brick streets, the gutters are just terrible.
And you
I hear
said,
you.
I know.
you said it's a dead end.
It's a dead end. There's five
houses.
five houses on it, which is one of the reasons it hasn't seen a lot of attention, of course. And from a staff perspective, I'm not sure that we would recommend the transfer to the shift.
It's kind of like Rumor Alley, right?
Yeah, that's getting paved this year.
That you would recommend the conversion?
We didn't really take a position from a staff perspective whether we think it's a good idea or not. I know one of the residents there would be open to, please just pave it if there's nothing else you can do. I don't know that all things considered, he would recommend. I can't speak for him. From a staff perspective, I'm not sure that we would take a position on it. Again, it's a dead end street with 5 residents on it, and not to say that they're not important, but there are other streets that get a lot more traffic, have a lot more residents on it. And the question becomes, does council want to see that converted to asphalt or not? That's really the question today. And then, first, do we decide, do we want to invest the money this year and or next year for that section of street? And if we do want to do that this year, it would have to be asphalt. And is council okay with shifting it over to converting it to
The
asphalt?
real question is, what do those affected residents want?
Right, and so if council were open to the conversion to asphalt, we would send the letters to everybody in the interim, have them, and then report back at the next meeting as we did with Jefferson and other streets.
And the second question, if we're doing that part, I drove the street, and there are some very rough portions. The obvious question is, from Ravine up to Van Allen, should it be replaced, and what would those residents want? And then you finally get to, we have Ravine. So are we going to do a third of it, a half of it, or all of it?
Van Avon's also not 100% shape.
Right.
So that's, yes, it begs all these questions.
Right.
Ideally, we obviously didn't plan to do that this year from a staff perspective. We didn't program it. we didn't feel it rose to that level. Not, again, not to say it's not important, but it just didn't rise to the level with the scarce resources we have.
Yeah, I'm thinking like with Jim, once you do one, this neighborhood, so what would the projected cost of doing all that, if you're buying asphalt and it's tonnage, maybe wait a year, would it be cheaper or more financially fit to do them all and, go through this year like this,
I'm thinking a lot of those people live up there who want the brick street.
Bless you.
That's something they like. I think they've gotten used to driving on really bad streets. The Ben Avon's really bad, I thought. But Woodland's not one of the worst streets in the city. I can't believe that the Tribune had trouble delivering.
Well, my thinking is if you're gonna put $58,000 into a dead-end street, and then 2 years from now, we're gonna have to resurface, or not they will have to resurface the upper part of it, are you gonna spend another $58,000, you're gonna put blacktop on it? You know what I'm saying? You're setting a precedent, in my mind. I mean, I know that the residents may want a brick street, but if you're gonna put $58,000 into the bottom, you might as well figure you're gonna put the $58,000 into the next 3 sections, correct?
Yeah.
Someone's gonna raise that issue.
More than that.
Why did you redo a dead-end street in brick when you could have saved $20-some thousand to fix another street? You know what I'm saying? You just gotta keep in mind.
Gary, a number of years ago, they repaired, they didn't replace, they repaired portions of Locust Street. Locust Street had some huge dips in it, and rather than tearing up the whole street and replacing curbs and everything, they had city crews doing, let's say, a 5x8 patch here and a 5x8 patch there. Any idea what the cost would be? I mean, if it makes it passable for the people without ruining the suspensions on their cars, they might be happy to have the brick as long as it's kind of level.
Nathan looked into that, and he had actually a specific note in the handout about due to the overall condition of that section of Woodland from Ravine South, it just doesn't make sense to do those repairs because they're kind of all over. It's not like there's a bad section here and this is good. It's kind of all over, and if you drive it, you would notice, yeah, it's pretty rough overall. Again, we didn't program it. We didn't think it rose to that level of doing anything with it, obviously, this year. Not to say it couldn't be something done next year if council wanted to look into that, but it wasn't. It just, given that, I mean, it's the same thing as with my street, Glenwood. It's pretty bad.
It's horrible.
It's pretty bad, but, I understand it's a marginal street and is what it is. So really the question is, does council feel that that's something we should look into this year? Do you want us to reach out and see if the residents would rather see a brick street? And that might help dictate one of the answers as well.
Yeah.
We can just reach out and see.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, see what they're looking at. So how bad is this for plowing? I'm just curious. Is it like Glenwood Avenue? I mean,
Their sections are pretty bad. I'm sure there's quite a bit of bumping around.
the reason I asked that, of course, is the damage to the plows and the replacement of the blades, skids.
Well, we can send the letter the standard letter to say council's considering conversion, and then I guess go from there.
Do we have time if we?
Just barely.
All right.
But council would have to decide at the next meeting if they wanted to do that.
And you get the response back, you think, by then?
Yeah, we go up to 2 weeks. And it's a
And the
standard.
response that it asks for is a letter if people are, how does it ask people to respond?
I think it gives several options for people if they have concerns. It outlines the public comment policy, it outlines when council's going to make the decision and how they can come to the meeting and discuss. I mean, it gives them the different options. We can certainly make sure it's flushed out.
Put an email contact for like Leroy, and Leroy would give it all to us, like that letter.
I'm retiring. Give it to
Yes,
someone else.
but I mean, you know what I mean, someone, if you just send an
6
email,
months.
people
Yeah.
like to do emails
Yeah.
pretty quick. They
Yeah, they
aren't
could.
afraid to do an email.
Yeah.
Hopefully with just the 5 properties there, hopefully it'd be fairly simple. I mean, if we may get to the point, we'll just go up and knock on the door too, if we have to. So, okay, we'll do that. We'll take
Send
it.
us out.
Yeah, they can contact us.
Save us that. Volunteers, trees.
Just one other comment about it. His letter, whoever was the letter he wrote, he had said that he really liked the bricks, but he didn't like that we have no repair plan in it. And, you know, we never keep up on it. And that's one of the problems with the bricks, is these streets have never been repaired. And that's, I mean, you have to really plan on something. I mean, Ben Avon's gonna need something done to it, and so is Glenwood in the next 10 years. I mean, really, someone's gonna decide what they wanna do.
Is Glenwood all ours?
No, oh, is it?
This other side of the street is, but not the houses.
Yeah, the street and the right-of-way is ours, so the front yards of the Westmead properties, some of the part of the front yards are in the city as well, but yeah, the whole street's ours.
Could stormwater funds ever be used for brick replacement? Have I asked you this before?
Curb and gutter. They can go toward the curb and gutter, which are significantly more expensive for brick because you have, 2 times as much concrete in the curb and gutter as opposed to straight curb, so it helps with that.
It helps with that,
But
but
not
not
with
brick,
brick.
even brick being more porous potentially than asphalt?
Well, when you do Brick Street properly, the base is concrete, so it wouldn't get through.
It's not
Actually.
close.
This was a long, long time ago. There was we had real bad rains. And I don't know if it was Jefferson Street that got washed out. And I thought Highland did when it was bricks. And I remember them fixing it. And they fixed it quick. But I mean, it was probably 20 years ago.
Oh,
I mean, it was, I don't remember if you, were you here 20 years ago? I mean, Leroy was probably on council then. But,
Probably.
I don't know who paid for it. Jim might have been. I don't know. Do you remember when that happened, Jim?
I can't remember that.
I remember it was Jefferson, because I used to go down Jefferson all the time, because I washed out, and they replaced
I
it.
do remember that happening.
It was in spring.
Lower part of Jefferson, below the cemetery. Okay.
Cool, we'll send the letter out, thank you.
Discussion for the motion, examination report, Katie? On that one?
No.
Apparently
Liquid
not.
fuels, the discussion?
Liquid fuels?
Liquid fuels discussion, yeah, I'm actually gonna turn this one over to Tim.
So
Sorry.
the city of Meadville receives liquid fuel monies, which is a tax on gas and diesel fuels, et cetera. We get about $400,000 a year. They general audit it every 2 years, and the one in front of you is from January of 2018 through December 31st, 2019. The only thing they found was there was a coding error where we purchased trucks for a fire truck where liquid fuels money is dedicated to the Public Works Department for snow plowing, salt, street repair, etc. So what they asked us to do then is literally cut a check from the general fund and replenish the liquid fuels fund for that $1,500 error. And we've already done that. I want to thank April and the accounts payable department that we had to go through a series of proofs and checks and send it on to them. They've already accepted it and cleared the audit. So everything looks good, and it was just, like I said, a coding error.
So that would be there would be a motion to accept that report.
Motion. Second.
A second?
Further discussion? Roll call.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel? Stearns?
Next on the list is a resolution. Now, Katie, it's your turn.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville terminating the proclamation of declaration of disaster emergency dated March 19, 2020. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that whereas the Mayor of the City Council of the City of Meadville collectively proclaim the existence of a disaster emergency in the City of Meadville due to the COVID-19 pandemic by the proclamation of declaration of disaster emergency dated March 19, 2020. And whereas the City Council of the City of Meadville, hereinafter City Council, extended said proclamation of declaration of disaster emergency indefinitely at the City Council meeting of April 15, 2020 by unanimous votes. And whereas due to COVID-19, the Governor's Office of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, hereinafter Governor, issued a proclamation of disaster emergency on March 6, 2020, renewed by amendments to proclamation of disaster emergency dated June 3rd, 2020, August 31st, 2020, November 24th, 2020, February 19th, 2021, and May 20th, 2021. And whereas the General Assembly of Pennsylvania terminated the March 6, 2020 proclamation of disaster emergency as amended and renewed by concurrent House Resolution number 106, session of 2021 on June 10, 2021. And whereas in light of the termination of Pennsylvania's proclamation of disaster emergency as amended and renewed, City Council desires to terminate said proclamation of declaration of disaster emergency as extended for the City of Meadville. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Meadville, by and through the Council of the City of Meadville, in accordance with its authority, hereby terminates the disaster emergency declared on March 19th, 2020 in response to COVID-19.
Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Sure, Your Honor. As discussed earlier, we largely mirrored the state's emergency declaration, so with the state lifting theirs, we're acting today to lift ours as well. And the main impact from what this allowed us to do is essentially allow the city council and the authorities, boards, and commissions to essentially meet remotely or virtually instead of in person. So with this lifting, that right goes away, but all of the authorities, boards, and commissions are back in in-person meetings anyway, so we'll have no practical effect other than that.
Any other questions, discussion? Roll call?
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye. We have a resolution authorizing signature finance director temporary service agreement.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on a finance director temporary services agreement between the City of Meadville and Tim Groves. Resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the attached agreement is hereby approved and adopted substantially in the form attached hereto, subject to final approval by the city solicitor as and for a binding and effective agreement of the City of Meadville in accord with its terms. And the mayor, controller, and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to execute and to attest such copies of the attached agreement in the manner required by law as may be reasonably required for the purposes of the parties thereto.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Second?
All second.
Discussion?
Thank you, Your Honor. You'll recall previous finance director Debbie Oldakowski resigned in June. Shortly after she gave her notice, we contacted Tim to see if he would come back and help us out. He graciously agreed to work one month, no pay, right, Tim? Is that right?
I thought it was a whole year.
Kind of hoping you'd approve.
He wasn't. So he came in, actually started work June 21st, and basically working full-time, getting back into things. He actually had been helping out for quite a while with a lot of finance issues anyway, so he stepped right back into it. It's doing a really good job. So we're a month into it. This agreement is retroactive to June 21st. It has 3 phases contemplated in it, so you'll have full-time as finance director, full/part-time once a new finance director is named, and then would stay on as a consultant through the end of 2022. Similar to what he did in 2018, I believe it was. He stayed on for a while there, helping out the new finance director, because there's an awful lot of, a lot to know, a lot of history there. Tim has a lot of institutional knowledge that helps, that he can impart onto the new finance director when that person does come back, or come on. So don't have a specific time frame for interviewing and naming that new finance director. That will be up to the new interim city manager and the finance, and Tim to determine. With that, that's where we are.
All right. Tim, again, thank you so much for doing this, because...
Got a good group of people here. They're all new, but a good group.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think just with the new folks that we have, it's nice to have someone who's been around, knows
They're
the-
very eager though, so it's good.
Welcome back, Tim.
Yeah.
Roll call?
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
All right, thanks again. Resolution authorizing signature for the work-based learning program agreement. Katie?
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on a work-based learning program agreement between the City of Meadville and Youth Advocate Programs Incorporated. Resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the attached agreement is hereby approved and adopted substantially in the form attached hereto, subject to final approval by the city solicitor, as and for a binding and effective agreement of the City of Meadville in accord with its terms. And the mayor, controller, and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to execute and to attest such copies of the attached agreement in the manner required by law as may be reasonably required for the purposes of the parties thereto.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a program, youth advocate program. They work with potentially at-risk youths to assist them. And what this essentially does is bring some of them on, not as city staff, but to help assist city staff, Public Works Department staff with some tasks, whatever Nathan feels would be appropriate for them to work on. There are several youths that will be on site along with a supervisor, an on-site supervisor. So our staff doesn't necessarily work directly with or supervise anyone. They're not employees, they just help out with some other activities. I believe we did this in the past, maybe 2-3 years ago as well. Worked out pretty well, so we are going to do that again. No out-of-pocket cost, no cost to the city, and they basically do a lot of tasks for the Public Works Department to get some things done through the summer.
Great.
When I was with, I had a contract with redevelopment, and Victor Leap would bring kids over, and they would help cut grass, and we do things of that nature. I think it's a good program. I would actually like to see it expanded, get them involved in doing more things in the area.
Namely brick streets.
Clean brick.
Wow, you really could work them hard.
It's an apprenticeship now.
That's rough.
Are there any implications as far as our workers' compensation insurance?
I believe it's all covered with,
It'd be under their coverage, wouldn't it?
you're not employees, so.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel? Stearns?
Aye. Katie, we have a resolution authorizing signatures, license agreement of the use of Fifth Ward Playground.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on a license agreement for the use of Fifth Ward Playground building between the City of Meadville and Creating Landscapes for Families. Resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the attached agreement is hereby approved and adopted substantially in the form attached here too, subject to final approval by the city solicitor as and for a binding and effective agreement of the City of Meadville in accord with its terms. And the mayor, controller, and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to execute and to attest such copies of the attached agreement in the manner required by law as may be reasonably required for the purposes of the parties thereto.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Discussion?
Thank you, Your Honor. This has to do with the community garden that's over, I believe, on Fibro Tool property. Thank you, Councilman
It's
Donahue.
going really well, too. It's a good year.
So the garden's actually on Fibro Tool property over in Fifth Ward, just between Columbia and Lincoln, and just adjacent to our Fifth Ward playground. Some time ago, Creating Landscapes for Families, which is the organization that's overseeing the community garden, we gave them approval to store tools and other implements in the former, I believe it's a former concession stand, storage building, concrete building on our property. And so this is really my OCD coming into play and saying we really need a license agreement to allow them to do this because it's probably going to be a longer term thing. This basically allows them to store the equipment there, to traverse our property to get to that, to there. There is no time frame involved, there's no termination date, and there's no compensation one way or the other with that. So basically they'll indemnify us for insurance purposes, but they have the key to that, and they've been doing this for quite some time now. This just formalizes the arrangement.
Okay. Any questions? You're okay with the agreement? Roll call.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel? Stearns?
Thank you. Resolution authorizing signature memorandum of agreement with America Court Vista League.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on a memorandum of agreement for AmeriCorps Vista Leader between the City of Meadville and Allegheny College. Resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the attached agreement is hereby approved and adopted substantially in the form attached hereto, subject to final approval by the city solicitor, as and for a binding and effective agreement of the City of Meadville in accord with its terms. And the mayor, controller, and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to execute and to attest such copies of the attached agreement in the manner required by law as may be reasonably required for the purposes of the parties thereto.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion?
Thank you, Your Honor. As I indicated earlier, Rena here will be joining us. We're very excited with Rena. She's got an awful lot of potential and already some experience in local government with the township down by Pittsburgh.
In Washington County, South Strabane Township.
South Strabane, I can't even say it, I'm so excited. She actually started working with us informally, if you will, July 6th, I believe, when she was sworn into the program. But because we didn't have this agreement in place before that, we made her work from home. So we'll be able to bring her in hopefully Friday, is that correct? Or
Monday.
Monday, she'll actually be in the office, you'll see her around, as I said before. This is the formal memorandum of agreement, it's 1 year, it can be up to 3, I believe. Hopefully we'll be able to keep her as long as we can because we think she can get some good stuff done. She's already started work on the home rule, as I indicated before, the process, and we're gonna start throwing a lot more stuff at her, help get the stamp recommendations moving forward. So this just lays out the responsibilities, rights and responsibilities of each party. It is $1,500 commitment for 1 year, and we're gonna certainly get our money's worth for sure with Rena, so that's all I have.
Well, again, welcome aboard. Looking forward to working with you. Any other comments? Roll call.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye. Resolution authorizing signatures, community development block grant, CV letter to understanding.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on a community development block grant CV letter of understanding between the City of Meadville and Center for Family Services. Resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the attached agreement is hereby approved and adopted substantially in the form attached hereto, subject to final approval by the city solicitor, as and for a binding and effective agreement of the City of Meadville in accord with its terms. And the mayor, controller, and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to execute and to attest such copies of the attached agreement in the manner required by law as may be reasonably required for the purposes of the parties thereto.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Thank you, Your Honor. As with all things CDBG, I'm referring this to Mary Ann to give her a little kickstart on her new job.
So this is in relation to the CDBG COVID money that DCED gave out earlier this year. Council had allocated funds to Center for Family Services and CHAPS for rental and utility assistance, as well as Center for Family Services for their food bank. Center for Family Services and CHAPS signed these kind of memorandums of understanding for the rental and utility assistance, but we accidentally omitted them signing an MOU for the food bank. So we're going back and rectifying that just with this resolution tonight.
Okay. Any question? Roll call.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel? Stearns?
Aye. Resolution delegating a community development block grant invoice.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville delegating Finance Director Tim Groves as signing authority for community development block grant invoices. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that whereas the City of Meadville has received funds from the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development in the form of a community development block grant. And whereas as a condition of community development block grant funding, participating jurisdictions must delegate signing authority for community development block grant invoices. And whereas Finance Director Tim Groves has been responsible for submitting community development block grant invoices for payment, now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that Finance Director Tim Groves is hereby delegated the signing authority for community development block grant invoices for the City of Meadville.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Tim, discussion?
Mary Ann.
Or Mary Ann, I'm sorry.
So this is a yearly CDBG ask out of DCED. Given the change in finance director from Debbie to Tim, we just need to resubmit the form, allowing Tim to submit the invoices and sign for invoices. They're all electronically signed now, so he needs the credentials to do that.
So he'll get the same emails that I get from Harrisburg? Okay. Sounds great. Any other discussion? Tim, you're okay with that?
Yes, I am.
All right. Roll call.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye. Thank you. Authorizing real estate transfer of 984 Water Street resolution.
The resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing transfer of 984 Water Street to the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Meadville for subsequent sale to Meadville Medical Center via sales and development agreement. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that whereas the City of Meadville owns property at 984 Water Street in the City of Meadville, Crawford County, Pennsylvania, which previously served as City Hall, the former city building, and whereas the former city building has been vacant, and Council of the City of Meadville listed the property for sale in April of 2021. And whereas the city desires that certain conditions be attached to any sale of the former city building, including a requirement that the property remain indefinitely on the tax rolls, and that no purchaser or subsequent owner be permitted to seek exemption of such taxes. And whereas pursuant to the third-class city code, the City of Meadville may transfer property to the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Meadville and include such conditions of sale pursuant to a sales and development agreement to be included in a sale to an interested third-party purchaser. And whereas Meadville Medical Center, through its for-profit subsidiary corporation, Home Care Connections, has extended a written offer to purchase the former city building for the sum of $725,000. Meadville Medical Center has agreed to the requirement that the property remain taxable. Meadville Medical Center plans to initially utilize the top floor of the building for hospital-related office space and will work collaboratively with the city and other local agencies to attract other businesses to occupy the first floor of the building, with the goal to have the building fully occupied within 18 to 24 months. And whereas City Council has determined that Meadville Medical Center, as the critical healthcare provider and a major employer of the City of Meadville and Crawford County, is an appropriate purchaser for the former city building. City Council believes it is in the best interests of the City of Meadville to accept Meadville Medical Center's offer to purchase the property for the sum of $725,000 in combination with the agreement that the property will remain taxable, with such a sale to be effectuated by and through a sales and development agreement with the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Meadville. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville the following. 1, the City of Meadville finds that Meadville Medical Centers, through its for-profit subsidiary Home Care Connections, offer to purchase the former city building located at 984 Water Street, Meadville, Pennsylvania, is acceptable and in the best interests of the City of Meadville. The former city building shall be transferred to the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Meadville for such designated purpose and price, with a subsequent sale of the property to Meadville Medical Center to be accomplished via a sales and development agreement with the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Meadville, which term shall include the requirement that the property remain taxable. 2, this acceptance is contingent upon approval by the Board of Directors of the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Meadville, and upon finalization and execution of all relevant documentation between the parties, including but not limited to the sales and development agreement between the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Meadville and Meadville Medical Center. 3, city representatives, staff, and its solicitor are directed and authorized to complete all required documentation to effectuate the transfer of the former city building to the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Meadville for sale to Meadville Medical Center pursuant to the terms herein, and to take all necessary action to effectuate the intent of this resolution, with the goal for the property to be ultimately transferred to Home Care Connections, a subsidiary of Meadville Medical Center, as soon as practical.
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Thank you, Your Honor. That was quite thorough. I'm not sure how much I have to add other than to say, obviously under state law, the city is required to dispose of property in certain ways. Generally, it would have to be by auction or bid. The state law does allow us to transfer to the Redevelopment Authority, which can then sell it with a developer's agreement. That's what this essentially authorizes. It accepts the offer of the $725,000 and allows, and Gary Elizio and Schaefer Law Firm, who conveniently represents the city and the medical center, to make that happen. So we'll see, probably next week, we'll see more in-depth paperwork documentation that will be circulated among all the parties involved. And then signatures then will be secured at that point. Go to Redevelopment Authority, then they sell to the medical center, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
You might want to mention that no commission is due or payable on this transaction.
That's correct, yes.
That saves taxpayers some money.
Yes, this was excluded from the marketing agreement approved by council in April. So.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, thanks everybody that worked on that, especially the medical center. I think it's going to be a positive thing for that area. And one other thing, that does not include the additional parking lot across the street. Okay. All right. Roll call.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye. Good job, thank you. Now comes the important one.
None of these were important.
No, they're all
Spent
important.
2 hours doing unimportant things.
They're all important. Resolution appointing a director of, community development, Mary Ann Ma, interim city manager.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville appointing Director of Community Development Mary Ann Manano as interim city manager, interim city clerk, and interim emergency management coordinator for the City of Meadville effective immediately. Resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that whereas the Council of the City of Meadville has received and accepted the resignation of Assistant City Manager Gary Johnson as interim city manager effective July 21st, 2021, with a permanent city manager candidate not yet selected. And whereas the city manager is responsible for administering the affairs of the city, entering into contracts, and performing other duties as determined by the Council of the City of Meadville and as set forth in the third-class city code. And whereas it is necessary to appoint a new interim city manager to continue administering the affairs of the city until such time as the Council of the City of Meadville appoints a permanent city manager. And whereas the city manager also serves as city clerk as permitted by third-class city code and emergency management coordinator of the City of Meadville. And whereas the Council of the City of Meadville desires to have Director of Community Development Mary Ann Manano serve in the capacity of city manager, city clerk, and emergency management coordinator during the recruitment process for a permanent city manager, and serve in that capacity until such time as a full-time city manager, city clerk, and emergency management coordinator is appointed. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Meadville that Mary Ann Manano, currently Director of Community Development, is hereby appointed interim city manager, interim city clerk, and interim emergency management coordinator effective the close of business immediately.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. Okay, discussion?
I'm sorry, Larry, did you second?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
And whatever we can do to help your job easier, please let us know.
Does close of business immediately mean like at the end of this meeting? Is that like at 4 today? Is that tomorrow?
That's
It'd have to
scary.
be-
That's scary. What is it?
Sure.
Sure. No, is there an answer? But it's tomorrow, right?
10, 9.
Oh, God. Hi.
Roll call. It
It's
goes into-
tomorrow, I'm sorry, it's tomorrow, right, is what, virtually, tonight?
Gary says
When
tonight.
you answer the
As soon as 3
phone.
people say aye.
That's what end of business is?
That's the end of business.
Got it, all right. Well.
Roll call? Okay. Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye, congratulations, you're now on duty.
End of business.
Councilmember statements, Jim, I'll start with you.
Oh, okay, I have a few things. First, I'd like to thank Gary for his service. He's handled 2 full-time jobs for the last 4 months, and he's done an admirable job of doing that. We appreciate you helping us in our time of need. Secondly, I'd like to welcome Tim back for the 3rd time. We're glad to have you. We appreciate you coming and helping us. Mary Ann, congratulations. I think you're going to do a great job for us. And Rena, welcome aboard. We'll overwork you as quickly as possible. That's all, Your Honor.
Larry?
Yeah, basically exactly what Jim said. Looking forward to working with Tim and Mary Ann. Rena, I'm looking forward to working, and if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. Gary, I think you did a really good job. I appreciate, getting the way you got back to me with things, and I just wish the best for you. And I'll be in touch with you.
Yeah, this is an exciting time, lots of changes. Welcome back, Tim, Marianne, really excited to have you on board in this position. we can't overwork Brenda very much because Vistas don't get paid anything basically, so let's be wary of that. But definitely excited to have you in the capacity we do. And yeah, Gary, you've been great. I've appreciated the kind of pace you've moved us at, and I feel like we've gotten a lot, we get through a lot, and I appreciate you, and appreciate the time you've been willing to give. Yeah, exciting time, lots of changes. I have started doing office hours, mainly for the last few weeks. They've just been here to be among staff and to kind of interact with people a little bit more, and that has been really nice. But they're, I'll be here, so that's where people can find me, Mondays 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And yeah, just excited to continue to be maybe a more familiar face in the building through all these changes. Larry might be doing some, I don't know.
Friday.
Okay, I'll let you announce your own. And then if other folks want to, that's great. Mondays 11 to 1. I'll be in this room unless we have auditors, and then I stand back there.
Gary, are you sure it was only 4 months?
It felt like longer.
4 years.
I was gonna say, but you didn't really go gray that bad, so you haven't been here that long. Just thanks, Gary, and Tim, thanks for coming back. We definitely needed you, and thank you, Mary Ann, for taking on this responsibility and see how your hair grays like Andy's did last. No, that's wonderful. That's what we need, someone that can shake things off once in a while, because Gary takes it too serious. I've always told him that. Okay? He takes everything too serious.
This is fun.
It was really nice to be part of honoring John Foster. He was the first police officer I knew, and actually I was sitting there thinking about it too, and my children went to school with his grandsons all the way through, so I've watched them too, Tammy's sons. On Thursdays, they are having the free concerts in the park. Just something to remember. It's right there in Diamond Park, and it's, I don't know, the last couple of weeks it probably got rained out or something, but everything got rained.
Okay.
We just got lucky days. And then August 7th, Thunder in the City here in the city. I think it's the 7th. It's pretty much all in Diamond Park. I don't know how far down Chestnut it's gonna reach.
It goes down Chestnut somewhat. Just a,
Chestnut will be used for parking. for-
Okay, they scaled it way back because they really didn't know what they were gonna have, and they have to plan it way ahead of time. And then the rec complex is also having a festival on the same day, but it's free too, and I know that the water is free, the pools are free, and they're gonna have venues set up, and it's gonna be something to go out to see if you're in town on the 7th. That's all.
Okay. Again, welcome aboard, Mary Ann. Tim, thanks again. Again, congratulations to Johnny Foster. I mean, he brought back a lot of memories working with him, and a very good guy. We all know that, and I'm glad that we were able to do that for him. And Gary, thank you. We've had a lot of conversations at late hours and things, but appreciate everything you've done and keeping us all informed, keeping the ship sailing smoothly. So appreciate that. And thank everybody for being here tonight. And I'll ask for a roll call for adjournment.
to executive session for personnel.
Can we have a motion?
So moved.
You so moved. Yeah.
Second.
Second. Roll call.
Donahue,
Aye.
McKnight,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel, Stearns.